Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 9 Part 2 based on novel. So let's start. The convoy traveled through the dense forest. As the wheels pressed onto the ground, some noisy rumbling noises were emitted, which subsequently spread into the distance. Lin Dong was seated at the back of the convoy. His internal injury had mostly healed after 2 days of recuperation. Hence, he had also recovered some of his strength. However, the cautious him did not wish to expose himself before he had made a complete recovery in order to avoid any conflicts. During these 2 days, Lin Dong quietly followed the convoy as it progressed deeper into the island. Other than Guya, who would occasionally chat with him, the other members of the convoy mostly ignored him. The gazes with which they looked at him were mostly filled with sympathy, while there were also some superiority and indifference in the eyes of some of the younger members of the Gu clan. While following the convoy, Lin Dong also saw many people gathering in this mysterious spirit island. These people were all heading towards the depths of the island. Clearly, all of them were after the same object, the mysterious life spirit fruit. Lin Dong had discovered some powerful people amongst these groups and was involuntarily a little speechless. This chaotic demon sea was indeed stronger than the Eastern Xian region. Most of the people who had appeared here were all extraordinary individuals. Moreover, from the fearsome aura lingering around their bodies, one could tell that they were ruthless individuals who had experienced countless life and death battles. Big brother Lin Dong, are you hungry? Here. Guya suddenly appeared beside Lin Dong while the latter was observing his surroundings. After which, she handed him a piece of dried meat and softly said. Lin Dong received the dried meat and took a bite. He hesitated for a moment before asking, Guya, do you still have any of the pills that you gave me yesterday? Guya had given Lin Dong some medicinal pills the day before. These pills not only contained a large amount of yuan power, but also contained a trace of extremely faint life energy. They were extremely effective for Lin Dong's recovery. Is Big Brother Lin Dong talking about the Xian Yuan pill? That medicinal pill is an upgraded version of the Nirvana pill, and it contains even more energy. The Nirvana pill contains Nirvana Qi, while the Xian Yuan pill contains a trace of life Qi. If you wish to purchase anything in the chaotic demon sea, you must have Xian Yuan pills. Guya was momentarily startled before she replied. I see, Lin Dong came to a sudden understanding. However, he did not feel surprised. After all, ordinary currency was of little use to most people. These pill currencies were something that were truly acknowledged by everyone. I only have around 500 Xian Yuan pills. If Big Brother Lin Dong needs to use them, you can take them all. Guya took out a small Qiankun bag and spoke with a somewhat red face. Lin Dong looked at Guya's flushed face, and was momentarily speechless for a time. He also felt somewhat complicated. This was the first time that he had met such a kind and simple person. 500 Xian Yuan pills might not be considered an overly large fortune, but it was substantially alluring for an ordinary person. However, this lady was actually feeling embarrassed because it was too small a sum. Thank you. However, Lin Dong did not put up an act. He currently really needed these Xian Yuan pills to recover his strength. Hence, he unceremoniously accepted them, but also remembered this favor in his heart. Guya, the Xian Yuan pills that our Gu clan distributes every month are not for you to use in this manner. However, a shriek suddenly sounded from their front when Lin Dong accepted the Qiankun bag. After which, he saw the red-clothed Guya staring at him with a frosty face. Guya was also frightened by Guya scolding. Immediately, her face flushed red as she said, These are my Xian Yuan pills. I will use them as I please. Moreover, Big Brother Lin Dong is not a bad person. You actually dare to talk back to me. Guy's face became furious when she saw the usually obedient Guya actually dared to retort. Her hand directly swung towards Guya. However, her hand was only halfway towards Guya when it was blocked by another hand. Lin Dong's expression was a little dark as he looked at the unreasonable lady. His tone had become deeper and darker. Both of you are members of the GU clan, and your upbringing really seems to be a little lacking. You, a cripple, actually dare to say that I have a poor upbringing. GU Ying's face turned white with anger. Clearly, it was the first time that someone had lectured her without giving her any face. Some of the other GU clan members also quickly surrounded this place. Their expressions were unfriendly as they stared at Lin Dong. What are all of you doing? The commotion created was quite great, and was naturally also detected by GU Yang in front. Immediately her figure moved and rushed over as she berated in a deep voice. Elder sister GU Yang, this fellow is trying to cheat GUYA of her Xian Yuan pills. He must be a crook. GU Ying hurriedly cried out when she saw this. That's not true, I voluntarily gave them to big brother Lin Dong. GUYA hurriedly defended Lin Dong when she heard this. You? Fury once again surged onto GU Ying's face. Enough. GU Yang's expression darkened. She chided the both of them before turning her eyes towards Lin Dong. With a frown, she said, what do you need GUYA's Xian Yuan pills for? Recuperation. Lin Dong's tone was calm. There is no way for you to recover from your injuries. Even the Xian Yuan pills will not help you. GU Yang knitted her brows and said, I have my ways. Lin Dong calmly replied but did not offer an explanation. So what if your injuries can be healed? Do you really believe that you can still rise to the top? GU Ying laughed coldly. Before she had finished speaking, however, she suddenly saw Lin Dong's gaze turn dark and stern as he stared at her. The rising viciousness in those eyes immediately caused her to feel a chill in her heart. Those words that had reached her mouth were actually swallowed back in astonishment. Soon after, she became angry and embarrassed. She was just about to snap again when she was stopped by GU Yang. Hopefully, you do not have any ill intent. GUYA has a kind heart, do not cheat her. Otherwise, I will not let you off. GU Yang took a single deep look at Lin Dong. After which, she ceased speaking, as she waved her hand and scattered everyone. GU Ying glared furiously at Lin Dong. Only then did she turn around and leave with great fury inside her. Lin Dong's expression was calm as he watched this scene. Only after everyone left did he smilingly pat GUYA's little head. He was about to utter some words of comfort when his expression suddenly became focused. He turned his head around, and looked at the spot a short distance to his front. A large group of people had appeared on the hillside. Their gazes were locked onto this place. They are the members of the Wei clan. To think that they have come here as well. A commotion quickly spread from their surroundings after Lin Dong discovered the group of people in front. Subsequently, all the members of the GU clan began to frown. Who are they? Lin Dong's eyes looked to his front. There was a green-clothed man at the very front of the group. The man's eyes were deep-set. Although a friendly smile hung on his face, there was a coldness within that smile. They are from the Wei clan, the one leading them is Wei Song. He is quite well known amongst the Wei clan's younger generation members. It is rumored that he is also an expert who is at the half-foot into profound life stage. GUYA spoke somewhat anxiously beside Lin Dong. Our GU clan and the Wei clan do not get along well. It is unexpected that they have also come to the mysterious Spirit Island this time around. Lin Dong nodded slightly. His eyes focused on Wei Song. Moments later, his heart suddenly shook and his gaze shifted behind Wei Song. There was a human figure completely wrapped in black robes at that spot. This person was inconspicuous, but Lin Dong was able to sense a trace of a unique fluctuation from his body. Ha ha, what a coincidence. I never imagined that we would meet Miss GU Yang here. Wei Song smilingly looked at GU Yang, who was leading the group from the GU clan, and said. GU Yang glanced at him indifferently. She replied, you are well informed, and have gotten here rather quickly. However, my GU clan will not let you have the mysterious life spirit fruit. Miss GU Yang is really quick to get to the point. Wei Song laughed. He still wore a smiling face that hid evil intentions. Soon after, both of his hands withdrew into his sleeves, as he meaningfully glanced at Guya and said, "In that case, we will have to rely on our own capabilities. Additionally, I will remind Miss Yang that there are many demonic beasts in Mysterious Spirit Island. You should be more careful at night." Wei Song laughed loudly after those words sounded, while a dark and cold light flashed deep within his eyes. After which, he waved his sleeve and led his people away. The members of the Gu clan had a somewhat ugly expression after Wei Song's group left. Lin Dong stared at the back of Wei Song's group and frowned slightly. It seemed that it was not very safe to stay with this group. Nightfall once again arrived, as the Gu clan convoy set up camp again. They were now deep in the Mysterious Spirit Island, and there were more and more traces of demonic beasts in this primitive forest. Hence, the defense of their camp was also upgraded. Not only were there guards patrolling the place, but there were also traps set up around the camp to counter any surprise attacks. Lin Dong was quietly seated beside the carriage. He glanced at the middle of the campgrounds, where the members of the Gu clan had gathered. It appeared quite lively, however, he did not have any intention of joining them. He could feel these people from the Gu clan did not like him. Hence, he did not have any plans to be friendly and end up getting snubbed by them. The injuries within my body are about 50–60% recovered. The faint life chi in the Xian Yuan pills are really extremely beneficial to my recuperation. It is likely that I will be able to very quickly recover from my injuries if I manage to obtain more. Moreover, I will be able to borrow its strength to attempt an attack on the 9 Yuan Nirvana stage. Lin Dong closed and opened his hand. The original powerless feeling had already disappeared from within his body, and wave after wave of abundant energy began to be restored. However, he was unable to return to his peak condition. The injuries that he had suffered this time around were simply too severe. If the Heaven Dragon aura inside him had not merged with his body, it was likely that Lin Dong would now still be in a half-crippled state, and a complete recovery would still require a long time. Xian Yuan pills. Lin Dong shook his head helplessly. He had already completely used up the few hundred Xian Yuan pills that he had obtained from Guya. Forget whether Guya still had any more, it was impossible for him to open his mouth and ask more from this little lass. Even he would find himself a little unreasonable if he did that. Without Xian Yuan pills, Lin Dong could only rely on his own recovery ability to gradually recover from his injuries. Big brother Lin Dong. Guya's voice sounded from the side. After which, Lin Dong saw the little mass offering him some grilled meat. Her pretty little face was slightly red, a sight that was rather cute. Lin Dong smiled at Guya. His gentle smile had never been shown to any other Gu clan members. Evidently, he had a good impression of this extremely kind, simple and pure girl. "Little Ya, don't go too far from me tonight." Lin Dong took a bite of the grilled meat. After which, he slightly narrowed his eyes as he gazed into the darkness at the depths of the forest and softly said. Guya was slightly startled. She stared at Lin Dong with a lost expression. "Just follow my instructions." Lin Dong smiled but did not provide any explanation. That group from the Wei clan during the day was clearly not a bunch of kind-hearted individuals. Moreover, the black-clothed person behind Wei Song gave Lin Dong a somewhat unique feeling. It would be quite troublesome if they attacked the Gu clan. Lin Dong did not care about the lives of the other Gu clan members. However, he would clearly do everything he could to protect this last Guya. Okay. Guya nodded obediently. She was timid by nature, and did not dare to ask Lin Dong for the exact reason behind his words. Lin Dong rubbed the young girl's head, while his eyes appeared a little lost. Guya was about Huan and Qingtan's age. He wondered just how those two were doing. Faint moonlight covered the entire camp. A dozen of Gu clan guards vigilantly scanned the surrounding forest. The entire campground was quiet, only broken by the occasional sound of the crackling bonfire. Lin Dong bit on the leaf in his mouth. He leaned against a tree trunk while maintaining an expressionless face. However, his eyes would occasionally look towards the nearby open carriage. A young lady was sleeping peacefully within it, and her delicate curves were faintly visible. Roar! This piece continued for a long time. Suddenly, a low and deep beast roar was suddenly emitted from deep within the forest. Lin Dong's slightly shut eyes also abruptly opened at this moment as he muttered, as expected, they came in the end. Boom! His mutter had just sounded when the land suddenly trembled. After which, Lin Dong sensed a bloody stench suddenly surging out from deep within the forest, as numerous pairs of bright red beast eyes appeared. Beast attack! This sudden turn of events was quickly detected by the GU clan guards. Their expressions immediately changed drastically, as a stern cry suddenly tore the silence of the camp. Roar! Many black figures which reeked of blood suddenly tore through the darkness at this moment. They charged out from the forest, while fiendish energy surged. Immediately, a couple of GU clan guards were torn into pieces. The entrances of the tents within the camp were lifted one after another, as numerous figures quickly rushed out. However, their expressions were ugly as they looked towards the demonic beasts that swarmed towards the camp. Damn it, they are actually demon rock-horned beasts. Jiu Yang's face was suffused with coldness as she looked at those completely black metal-like demonic beasts. Her expression was rather grim. The bodies of these demonic beasts were extremely sturdy. In their mature form, they were comparable to a 7 or even 8 Yuan Nirvana stage expert. With such a huge number of them surging over, it would be rather troublesome for them to deal with. Why are these demon rock-horned beasts suddenly attacking us? We did not provoke them. Someone cried out while feeling puzzled. Such demonic beasts might be difficult to deal with, but they usually would not attack if one did not provoke them. Why would these demonic beasts launch a sneak attack on them in the middle of the night? Jiu Yang knitted her brow slightly. She also had some suspicions, but there was clearly no time to ponder over such things at this moment. She immediately waved her hand and cried out, "Get into formation!" Hearing her cry, the GU clan members hurriedly gathered together. Mighty Yuan power erupted, while sword flashed, directly killing a couple of demonic beasts which had entered the camp. A battle erupted in an instant, as a bloody stench quickly spread from within the camp. Lin Dong's expression was calm as he watched the now chaotic campgrounds. He continued to lean against the tree trunk without moving. It seemed that he had no intention of intervening. Roar! A demon rock-horned beast suddenly rushed out from the darkness and directly charged towards the carriage Guya was in. At this moment, the young lady had also been awoken. She looked at the ferocious large beast that was pouncing over with saliva dripping from its mouth, as her little face paled. However, she still quickly maneuvered her Yuan power in an attempt to stop it. However, a golden light suddenly arrived when the demon rock-horned beast was about to pounce at her. After which, it pierced the demonic beast's head. Boiling hot blood shot out, and the beast collapsed onto the ground with a loud thud. The golden light disappeared in a flash after piercing this demonic beast, while a golden ring appeared in Lin Dong's hand as he continued to lean against the tree trunk. A sinisterly cold and sharp glow surged on the ring. These demonic beasts. Lin Dong frowned as he observed the demonic beast that had been killed by him. He sensed a trace of an extremely enigmatic fluctuation from within its mind when he pierced its head earlier. However, this fluctuation had disappeared when he was about to probe deeper. Big brother Lin Dong. Guya ran over with a pale face. After which, she hid beside Lin Dong. Her eyes had some panic as she looked towards the chaos in the camp. A dozen demon rock-horned beasts surrounded them while Guya was running over. Savageness flickered within their bright red beast eyes. After these demon rock-horned beasts surrounded them, Lin Dong suddenly saw some human figures charging out from the forest. Brandishing large sharp blades, they charged into the camp and began to kill indiscriminately. Lin Dong's frown deepened as he stared at these human figures who had charged over. These people might have ferocious auras, but their eyes were glazed. It felt as though they were being controlled. What an interesting ability! To actually be able to control demonic beasts and humans. Lin Dong watched the dozen demonic beasts and humans who were charging towards him while muttering to himself. He tilted his head and gently smiled as he spoke to the pale-faced Guya, close your eyes. Guya glanced at Lin Dong. She hesitated for a moment, but she ultimately clenched her teeth and shut her eyes. The smile on Lin Dong's face suddenly vanished the moment Guya shut her eyes. A densely cold expression replaced it. The golden ring with dragon symbols on it began to let out a buzzing sound as it rotated on his palm. With a flick of his finger, the golden ring turned into a flash of golden light as it abruptly shot out. Golden light swept past as flowers of blood blossomed one by one. These extremely sturdy demonic beasts were as fragile as thin paper in the face of the dragon Yuan ring. Golden light pierced the throat of a human figure, before it returned to Lin Dong's palm. In the short span of a dozen seconds, all of them had been killed. Lin Dong walked forward and stopped in front of the corpse. His hand searched the dead body, and a Qianquan bag was obtained. Oh, 600 Xian Yuan pills. Lin Dong's mental energy scanned the bag, as an unexpected joy surfaced from the corners of his mouth. After which, he lifted his head and narrowed his eyes as he looked towards the many human figures in the depths of the forest, and softly said, I must not waste the Xian Yuan pills that have been delivered straight to my doorstep. Little Ya, stay in the camp. Guya hurriedly opened her eyes when she heard this voice. However, she could only see Lin Dong's back as he entered the depths of the forest. Lin Dong's figure swiftly traveled through the dusky forest. His slightly narrowed eyes continued to scan his surroundings. He was able to sense many hidden auras within this dense forest. From the looks of it, the puppet master was quite skilled. To be actually able to do something like this. Lin Dong's forward-moving body suddenly stopped, as several human figures burst out from the darkness. Formidable attacks were immediately aimed at the fatal spots on his body from all directions. Lin Dong's expression was undisturbed in the face of these attacks. With a swirl of his palm, the dragon Yuan ring turned into a flash of golden light and swept forth. The muffled sound of flesh being torn rang out after the golden light rushed out. This dragon Yuan ring was something that Lin Dong had created with a great amount of Yuan spirit energy. Hence, its sharpness had reached an astonishing level. A dozen black shadows suddenly collapsed when the golden light flashed past. They were unable to even cry out in misery. Lin Dong's figure landed. With a wave of his sleeve, he collected all of the Qianquan bags on these black figures. Only then did he squat down and press his hand on the forehead of a corpse. A moment later, he finally retracted his finger as a trace of surprise surfaced in his eyes. It seems to be mental energy, such a formidable person. To actually be capable of using mental energy to control so many people. As expected of the chaotic demon sea. Lin Dong lifted his head. His hand made a grabbing motion at the space in front of him, before he laughed softly. I'm really interested to have a look at the extraordinary individual who is actually able to perform such a feat. Lin Dong's figure suddenly shot out after his voice sounded, as he swiftly shot into the deeper parts of the forest. Lin Dong once again discovered many human figures under control along the way. However, they were not very powerful and were all at the 5 or 6 Yuan Nirvana stage. Naturally, they did not pose any threat towards Lin Dong. Additionally, the minds of these people had already been removed, and they were no different from zombies. Hence, Lin Dong did not show any mercy. The dragon Yuan ring would rush towards anyone he met, directly killing them. Subsequently, he would take their Xian Yuan pills. Lin Dong seemed to have been discovered by the person in the darkness as he ventured deeper into the dense forest. Immediately, he sensed an increasing number of controlled demonic beasts and human figures surround him. I have been discovered. Lin Dong naturally sensed the sudden rise in pressure around him. He let out a soft laughter and flickered his finger, and golden light surged on the dragon Yuan ring. Immediately, the 8 sharp ring blades were separated from the main body. 8 ring blades rushed out, forming a dense golden light web. With a cutting momentum, it swept across the area. Blood and flesh flew wherever the light web passed, a rather bloody event. Lin Dong's figure flew out, as the 8 golden ring blades shot out and formed a ring under his feet. His toes pushed off it, and his body rushed out like a giant peng. Finally, it broke free from this dense forest. Green light suddenly surged on Lin Dong's body just before he charged out of the dense forest and completely covered body. Clatter. Lin Dong's figure charged out from the dense forest and landed on a boulder. He lifted his head and looked at the hill before him. There was a black-cloaked figure seated quietly at the top of the hill at this moment. A pair of extremely deep eyes containing a dark chill as they stared at Lin Dong, who had appeared. Lin Dong watched that black-cloaked person, as his brows twitched slightly. This was because this was that person whom he had seen behind Wei Song back then. Busybody, die? The black-cloaked person stared at Lin Dong in a dark and cold manner, as murderous desire flashed across his eyes. He did not move, but the deafening sound of wind splitting apart the air suddenly sounded, as a majestic force quickly swept towards Lin Dong. It is indeed mental energy. Lin Dong smiled slightly as he sensed the familiar strength that was sweeping towards him. Green light erupted from his body. After which, he threw a punch forward. A dragon roar reverberated over the place as green dragon light fist whistled out and blasted apart the attacking mental energy. Boom! The surrounding land trembled violently. Numerous 100 feet large small hills actually began to float upwards. After which, they viciously smashed down onto Lin Dong from all directions. This black-cloaked person's mental energy had clearly reached quite a shocking level. Bang bang bang. Lin Dong's body also hovered in the sky, as powerful green light exploded from his body. Both of his arms dragonified in an instant. After which, he threw one punch after another and forcibly blasted all of those hills apart. Your raw power is quite strong. A surprised look clearly flashed across the black-clothed man's eyes when he saw this scene. Quickly after, both of his hands suddenly formed a series of seals. Immediately, mental energy surged and unfurled from him. It actually turned into a strange 100 feet large eyeball in front of him. Soul assimilating eye, soul capture. A strange light ray quickly shot out when the eyeball blinked. This light covered Lin Dong. Under the cover of that light, Lin Dong immediately sensed that his consciousness was actually beginning to turn blurry. What an unusual fellow! The blurriness of his consciousness merely lasted for an instant before Lin Dong suddenly recovered. His eyes hardened, and his finger thrust forward. The dragon Yuan ring directly tore through the air, and shot towards that black-clothed person with lightning speed. Yuan spirit weapon. The expression of the black-clothed person changed slightly as he looked at the dragon Yuan ring that was rushing towards him. He was also clearly aware of how powerful this thing was. He immediately clenched his hand, as majestic mental energy directly turned into a giant mental energy spear in front of him. With a wave of his sleeve, the large spear violently shot out and collided with the flash of golden light. Bang! A low and deep sound appeared. The golden light that the dragon Yuan ring turned into shot backwards before hovering in front of Lin Dong. Humph! The eyes of the black-clothed person turned dark and cold, as he suddenly stood up. Immediately, abnormally majestic mental energy unfurled. It seemed to vaguely form an enormous tornado behind him, and even space itself had become a little distorted under this mental energy storm. Such powerful mental energy. Lin Dong's expression became slightly grave at this moment. The mental energy of this black-clothed person was extremely powerful. At least in terms of mental energy, even Lin Dong had to admit that he was no match for this person. I never imagined that I would actually meet a divine symbol master here. Lin Dong stared at the black-clothed person and slowly said. He could sense how formidable this person was. That partially present pressure vaguely reached the level that Yuan Kang had given him back then. Clearly, the mental energy of this black-clothed person should have already reached the divine symbol master level. Instead of following the path of heaven, you choose to charge into hell. In that case, allow me to refine you into a human puppet. The black-cloaked person lifted his head. Half of his exceptionally pale face was revealed under the moonlight, as he gave Lin Dong a ferocious smile. Lin Dong knitted his brows slightly, as the Yuan power within his body began to swiftly circulate. There were after all still some injuries within his body. It would be a little troublesome if he was to fight an all-out battle with this person. However, while Lin Dong was thinking of how to deal with the situation, an extremely faint and low buzzing sounded. The majestic mental energy around the black-clothed person gradually weakened when he heard this sound. He venomously glanced at Lin Dong, before his body swiftly drifted backwards. "Brat, consider yourself lucky this time around. I will definitely refine you into a human puppet the next time we meet." The black-clothed person quickly made distance between them. However, his dark and cold voice was transmitted over from afar. It sounded just like the howl of a ghost, a sound that made one's hair to stand on end. Lin Dong watched the black-clothed person's leaving figure. He did not give chase. The green light lingering around his body was withdrawn. As he knitted his brows, he thought to himself that this was indeed worthy of being the chaotic demon sea. He had only just arrived, yet he had already met such a troublesome person. Based on his guess, this black-clothed person should be at the initial divine symbol master level. He would not be weaker than some initial profound life stage experts. Lin Dong was not afraid if they were to fight at this moment, and that person would not be able to stop him if Lin Dong wished to leave. However, if Lin Dong wanted to defeat that person, he must first fully recover from his injuries. That fellow seems to be someone on the side of the Wei clan, and their aim is also the life mysterious spirit fruit. It is likely that we will have to fight sooner or later. Lin Dong's eyes flickered for an instant. After which, he turned around and walked into the dense forest. From the looks of it, his recovery was really an extremely urgent matter. A bloody stench permeated the camp. The previous chaos had already gradually subsided. The corpses of many humans and beasts were piled together, giving off a stench that was extremely difficult to breathe in. At this moment, the GU clan group had clearly already stopped the beast attack. Although they had suffered some injuries and deaths, their losses were not considered too severe. Once the chaos was over, they began to tidy up their camp. Some members of the GU clan were clustered at one corner of the camp. Their eyes were looking at some demon rockhorn beasts on the ground in front of them. There was a glaring bloody wound on the heads of these demon rockhorn beasts. Killed in a single strike. Gu Yang's slender finger touched the wound on these demonic beasts. Her eyes hardened as she softly commented, "How clean." Shock flashed in the eyes of the GU clan members. They were clearly aware of the defensive powers of these demon rockhorn beasts. Even their full force attacks would only leave behind a relatively minor wound on the bodies of these beasts. It was likely that only Gu Yang, who was at the half a step in the profound life stage, was able to kill them with a single strike. However, this was clearly not done by Gu Yang. Guya, who did this? Gu Yang looked at the young lady beside her, and suddenly asked. "I do not know. Earlier, Big Brother Lin Dong asked me to shut my eyes." Guya was similarly a little lost. Honestly speaking, her innocent self did not immediately associate such clean methods, which caused even Gu Yang to be stunned, to Lin Dong. After all, the current Lin Dong should not even be able to cultivate. Lin Dong. Gu Yang clearly had a stunned expression, and Gu Ying's face also changed a little as she stood by the side. She immediately said, "Guya, stop talking nonsense. That person is a crip." She had yet to finish her words, when they saw a human figure slowly walking out from the dark dense forest in front. After which, that figure flatly glanced at them. Lin Dong's expression was still as calm as ever. However, even Gu Yang's breathing seemed to slow for a moment when he walked over. Gu Ying forcibly swallowed the words in her mouth, and looked at Lin Dong's indifferent expression. She did not know why, but a chill had started to rise in her heart. This video will end here.